Hey everyone, it's Kristen. As you can see, I have a new setup. If you guys remember, this cabinet is where I keep all my X-Men comics, like 700 if you watch that video. And then if I lean this way, you can see my superhero Barbies, which I did a video on those. And then up here are older action figures that I have, and then some statues throughout, and then more statues up there. I don't have all my statues displayed because that's a lot. And I wanted to be able to kind of see everything, so I might rotate them out from time to time. And then I put some of my posters, up here, just for fun to give the room more of a superhero feel. So today we're going to be talking about this, the psychology of supervillains. This is Wizard issue 88. December of 1998. I really like looking back on these because they tell you so much about what was going on in the world at that point, and they're just to me they're just fun to look through, and they have fun articles and other things. So I was looking through this, and one of the things I noticed is that it's definitely geared towards guys, because you'll see this advertisement for a new comic book. It says the object of everyone's desire, and then it says, the name. And you can see she's wearing pretty much almost nothing. Definitely trying to grab people's attention, which it does, but like I said, like we've talked about, comic books are definitely, were more sexualized back then. Well, I mean, I'm not naive to think that sex doesn't sell, because it does. So, But okay, in that same comic book or same magazine, though, here's an example of another advertisement for a comic. I mean, see, she's still beautiful, a little bit of sex appeal, not like overtly so, though. And these were Avalon Studios, which was actually a subdivision of Image Comics, which, if you don't know, Image made Savage Dragon and Spawn, which Spawn was a super popular character at the time. Oh, and then see, like, another interesting advertisement for a comic. It kind of draws you in because you're kind of thinking, okay, what is that about, Another one. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, the contrast between the two, two different advertisements to try to get people to buy their comic. So in this, who is the sexiest female character in comics? Like, again, sex sells. The first issue of Wizard I bought, 83, I did a video about it, the top 10 sexiest females in comics. They did a reader's poll, and Catwoman was actually first. And to find out what they ranked her as, you'll have to watch that video. And they found it interesting that Witchblade and Rogue were actually, Rogue got 11%, Witchblade got 12%, and they weren't even mentioned on the original ballot that they put out. So they found that interesting because they were both write-ins, and they got such a huge following. So that's actually really interesting, I think, too, is that, okay. So I thought this was really interesting. So Pokemon started as a black and white, like, Game Boy, Nintendo game in 1996. And it was so wildly popular that it spawned, a television series and all this stuff. And so basically what they're saying is, see, Japan's wildly successful Pokemon sets its sight on America. So basically the Pokemon premiered in September of 1998. So just this year, and this is the magazine from December. So really, they put it out in November. So I just think it's interesting because, they're like, oh my gosh, look what's coming, it's Pokemon. And they even have a pronunciation guide in here, Pocket Monsters, and they tell you how to pronounce Pokemon just in case you're not sure. It's just funny to me because Who doesn't know what Pokemon is now? You know, the card game is still popular. It has a new Netflix series now. It has the new game for Switch. You know, they're constantly coming out with new games and stuff for it, new video games. And Pokemon Go, I play that. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you at all. And then, you know, oh, they had the movie with Ryan Reynolds, the huge blockbuster movie, you know, the live action version, computer generated, with Ryan Reynolds. So, I mean, look how fast it's grown in just that short amount of time. And they just give you, like, you know, the lowdown, you know, the characters, things like that. And, you know, just that the merchandise will be coming out next month, in, you know, November, because the show premiered in September, so merchandise would be in November. So when the show premiered, they didn't even have anything out. So it's just crazy because now you see Pokemon everywhere. Another interesting article. There we go. Sorry. Paul Dini. He actually wrote most of the episodes of the Batman animated series and the Superman animated series. And he was responsible for Harley Quinn, her introduction to ultimately comics, because of course she premiered on the animated series first in that incarnation, and then they actually brought her into comic books in the Batman storyline No Man's Land, which that was a year-long storyline they did to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Batman. And we'll actually talk about that in the next Wizard magazine, because that played a huge, I mean, it was a huge storyline. It was a whole year long. One of my favorite episodes that I don't know if he wrote this particular one, but where Batman actually spends time with Ace of the Royal Flush Gang. I don't want to give too much of it away, but it just shows his human side, and it's just, I mean, it's just an amazing episode. If you watch, I mean, you should just watch it. And then they also talk about his new project, which is Batman Beyond. I don't know if any of you heard of that, but that's another really good comic books animated show. And that one stars, it takes place in the future, and Batman at this point is 80. And he tried to be Batman up until he was 60. He even had a high-tech suit design, and he wore it, and it gave him a heart attack, so he had to quit. So this comes in when he's 80, and the new Batman shows up. And I don't want to give it away, but it has a huge twist that you don't really see coming, or maybe you do, but I didn't see it coming at first. So I know everyone says that Batman the animated series is definitely the best animated superhero show, and it's not like I can disagree with that. But of course, you know me. I mean, I love X-Men. You can see my shirt. I love Wolverine. So of course I'm biased. I think X-Men's the best, but the Batman animated series was it's really good. Like, you should definitely check it out if you haven't. Okay, so we get to the psychology of superheroes, and this is actually they reached out to a real psychologist, Dr. Stuart Bischoff, and he's a tenured professor of media psychology at California State. And what this means is he studies the interaction of humans with media and technology, which, think about it, in 1998, and just think about how much more media and technology affects us today and has such a huge part in our lives today. So just, I mean, it's even more so. So I don't know if you can see this, but you can kind of see the little Xavier X-Men symbol. There you go, on the back. You know, that he supposedly got his degree from the Xavier Institute. So he first analyzes Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, and he was born in Latveria to gypsy parents. And he lost both of his parents like super young. And so he kind of has this complex where he blames the world for his problems. He blames the world for having lost his parents. He also, the psychologist, Stuart, Dr. Bischoff, says that he has an unhealthy fixation on his mother. He demonstrated that because he went to, well, basically hell to try to get her soul back, to try to he also has this thing called defensive projection. Basically, he can't be wrong, so you're wrong. When Reed Richards, who is brilliant in his own right. I mean, Dr. Doom's brilliant too, but Reed, he is brilliant and he doesn't think about stuff sometimes. Like you can see this in the Fantastic Four comic books. Sue and Reed have a kind of tumultuous marriage sometimes because he just doesn't think. Like he focuses on his work and analyzing things, and he doesn't think of terms and of things in terms of human and emotions. So anyway, he pointed out to Doom, hey, your calculations are wrong for this machine. And Doom, of course, scoffed at him, laughed it off, whatever, because he couldn't be wrong. So Reed must have been wrong. And after the machine literally blew up in his face and like scarred his face, and that's why he wears the metal faceplate. He blamed Reed, and that's kind of where his hatred of Reed started, because Reed kind of exposed this weakness in him. Like he wasn't the completely brilliant man that he himself thought he was. And the treatment options would be basically, the doctor says deep psychoanalysis, but the problem is that any therapist, once they bring up the whole fixation on his mother and that he blames other people for his shortcomings or other things that he, really can't, or that the world's not at fault for. Like, the world didn't kill his parents, they just, but he blames the world. He's mad at the world. So basically, any therapist that suggests these things to him, he's saying that Dr. Doom would probably kill them because he doesn't like to have his weaknesses brought up, as evident by his hatred of Reed. And pretty much that's the reason he hates him, is because he brought up his weakness and he showed him, hey, you're wrong about this. This isn't right. The calculations for this aren't right. So, he doesn't like that. Okay, so the next one is the Joker, which I found him really interesting. I mean, he's pretty much one of the most fascinating Batman villains that they have. So, reminder that this magazine is from 1998, so they have reworked origins a lot since then. And the Joker's origins, has been reworked, and a lot of these characters in here. So this is Dr. Bischoff's, analysis, recommendations from the origins that were at this time, that existed at this time. So with the Joker, he was married. That might surprise some of you. And he had a baby on the way. And unfortunately, he couldn't take care of his wife. He couldn't hold down a job. He failed at providing for her, for himself, for his unborn baby. He's tried being a stand-up comedian. He failed at that. He couldn't make a living at that either. So one night he was approached to take on robbing this chemical plant because, he could get money that way to maybe support his family. So he agreed because, he wasn't doing a great job at anything else. So he agreed to that. And the night before, his wife and his unborn baby died in an electrical fire. The house caught on fire and they died. And so he really didn't want to go through with it. But of course, these guys are criminals. They aren't guys you say no to. So he went along with it, and of course Batman foiled it, and he actually got pushed into, where he fell into a vat of chemicals and was horribly disfigured. And now he just kind of feels like his life is one big joke. And the doctor says that there's probably no help for him, no saving him, because he's killed thousands of people in his, being a criminal, and causing mayhem and murder. And he seems to feel no remorse for that. And what a part of that is, he says, is that he feels like he's way better at being a criminal. He's actually good at being a criminal than he was at like real quote unquote life. He was no good at that. So why would he go back to being a normal person where he sucked at? He was no good. He couldn't even support his wife or his unborn baby or himself, really. But he's really good at being a criminal. And it seems like he takes great pleasure in specifically killing, maiming, disfiguring any of Batman's loved ones. If you read The Killing Joke, you'll see that's where he paralyzes Barbara Gordon. And Batgirl, even though he doesn't know she's Batgirl, but he's Commissioner Gordon's daughter, so that makes him, a friend of Batman's and therefore an enemy of Joker's. I wouldn't, it's not a light read. It's some pretty heavy stuff. So I wouldn't read it if you're, if you don't like grisly stuff, because it's kind of there. But it's a good story, but it's not something you read if you just want a fun, light comic book story, for sure. So pretty much, they say, or the doctor says that you can try to reach him. You can try to remind him who he was before he became the Joker through hypnosis, but it's very unlikely considering he shows no remorse for anything that he's done. So another one he talks about is Magneto, which he has a pretty heavy origin. I mean, he lost an entire family in the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. He was the only survivor, so that alone would totally weigh heavy on you. I mean, when I was in high school, we visited the Holocaust Museum in Houston, and I just, like, there are no words. I can't believe that actually happened. Like, to see actual pictures of, kids my age at the time, or even younger, they're just skin and bones, and they died, and just to see, like, the mass graves, and just the collection of shoes, and all the valuables just piled up, and I mean, like I said, I can't really imagine, and that just adds like this huge layer to who Magneto is. Sorry. After once he grows up, he does fall in love and get married and has a daughter. But unfortunately, he loses his daughter in a fire. Hold on, sorry, the phone was ringing, but it was just a scam call. I mean, I got a lot of those. I'm sure you guys do too. Anyway, okay, he gets married, has a daughter, and he loses his daughter in a house fire. He's unable to save her, and it's said that people know what he is, who he is, and they set his house on fire on purpose. And whether they knew whether his daughter was in there or not sure. Like I said, the origin for most of these characters has changed since 1998. His wife is so, like, he's so upset by this that he retaliates. Like, his power just grows so much greater, and he just lets them have it, basically. Let the villagers who did this have it. And his wife, Magna, is so terrified that she leaves him. She flees. And she later gives birth to twins, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Which this is one of the origins they've changed because of the movies. Because when they did the Avengers movies, Fox still owned X-Men, so they couldn't reference mutants or X-Men or anything like that in the Avengers movies. So they made Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch experiments instead of mutants, Magneto's kids, which that sucks. I'm sorry, but it does. Like, anything that has a connection to X-Men, of course, I love. Scarlet Witch, she's such a cool character. I love that she's this bridge between X-Men and the Avengers. And also, I mean, same with Miss Marvel, because of Rogue stealing her powers, this bridge between the two. So, I mean, I have a special place in my heart for characters like that. So it sucks that they've changed her. They want to change her origin to, fit more with the movies, and rather than leave it how it is. So basically, Magneto has seen throughout history how people treat people who are different than them. Like, people in power treat people who are different than them. They saw it during the concentration camps, and now he sees it being a mutant, that people fear what they don't understand. And so therefore, to prevent him and his fellow brothers from being enslaved, he feels like they need to take over. But unfortunately, with his mindset is the mindset of a lot of leaders throughout history, unfortunately, is that the ends justify the means. Like Stalin, Hitler, they're like, this is what we have to do in order for this outcome to happen. Like, for the greater good, supposedly, this is what needs to happen. And that's how he feels. Like, he doesn't, people will, basically, the ends justify the means. Like, it doesn't matter who he hurts. Like, he doesn't care about humans because they don't care about him. Again, he's paranoid that all humans hate him and want to enslave him. So the treatment that the doctor suggests is to shed some of the paranoia, to spend time with normal people, and to see that normal people view him as normal, and to focus on what they have in common instead of what they have different. Like, at this point, I don't think that would work for Magneto. I mean, he's been good before. Like, he's run Xavier's school in his absence before, but I don't think he can shed that deep level of paranoia, because, I mean, honestly, like, how could you, going through all that you've been through, all the loss that you have encountered? So I don't blame him for for the way he is. I guess it just, like I said, there's so many layers to him that make up him. And then he talks about Catwoman, and basically she is a product of childhood abuse. Her mother left. Her dad was an alcoholic and drank himself to death, and then the headmistress of the orphanage abused her. And so the doctor says that, not everyone who grows up in abusive situations becomes, criminal or abusive themselves. But he says you can definitely see a correlation between the two, because if you're subject to abuse, then that leads to, resentment and anger towards others. And also the mentality of, well, I can only look out for myself. No one else is looking out for me, so I have to look out for myself, because no one else is going to do it for me. No one else cares enough to look out for me. So what he suggests for her, and also because, like, she straddles that line kind of between villain and good guy sometimes. He does say she does exhibit good behavior, but the thing about it is that even her good behavior is for her own benefit. Like, she rescues people girls from the streets. She helps people out of rubble during the earthquake. That is for her own benefit. So she can, by rescuing these girls, it's kind of like facing her own demons. And when she beats up people like drug lords and pimps, then she feels better about herself because she feels like she's doing something good, but she's also getting to, let out her anger and resentment on these people. She also, she's also beat up on good people before. She doesn't really discriminate, and that's the problem. And they talk about how she honestly has a lack of self-confidence about herself, which if you see her and in her outfits and you you like read her storylines, you don't see that, but I think all that just like hides the, like he said, the deeper issue is that she lacks self-confidence. And he says that if a therapist shows her like, hey, there's a better way to get this, ego gratification, you can choose this path instead, which will get you, the same results, and you'll feel better about yourself. So that's what he suggests for her. And then we also have, well, I think we're going to cut this off right here because it's running a little long, and I know most people don't watch it past like a certain time. So I'm just going to continue this in part 2, and I hope you'll join me for that. We still have Doc Octopus and Lex Luthor to talk about, and a couple more things throughout this magazine that I want to talk to you about or show you. So I hope you'll join me for that. Until then, bye.